What a Catch, Parts 114 and 115. The plot points for both parts flowed so well together that, instead of shifting views, I decided to keep them as one larger part instead of two separate individuals. So that's the explanation for that. Also, the cats love when I record, and that's when they give me all of their love and affection. So if you hear little bells or purring, or I don't know, grooming noises, that's the explanation behind that. They're just lonely creatures, I guess. Anyway, if you haven't already, make sure you've subscribed to this channel to stay up to date on not only What a Catch, but other fanfictions that come out. And if you'd like to support me as the author, make sure you hit that thumbs up button, comment, even giving me a dislike helps me, as YouTube counts it as an interaction. Now then, let's move on to the final arc of What a Catch. The downside to losing years of memories, besides the obvious, is Adrien couldn't remember his banking passwords, or his pins, or anything you don't tell anyone, really. He'd been able to book flights back to Paris thanks to the autofill on his laptop, but now he couldn't do so much as buy a shovel on his own, and the banks wouldn't open until morning. So here he was, breaking into his allegedly dead father's mansion to steal gardening equipment. It must also be mentioned he needed the shovel to dig up said father's grave. So here I am, buns halfway through the gate I used to sneak out as a teenager, dressed in black with a burglar mask on. Because when Adrien Agreste goes for a role, he commits, and today's scene placed him in a... Adrien, will you please stop narrating? Adrien got cut off by Marinette's request, and he could somehow hear her rolling her eyes. Whatever, he said, wiggling his hips. I am stuck. Give me a push? He felt her shoe on his rear, propelling him forward. He was sure to have a bruise, but time would tell if it was from her kick or the bars grazing his hiney as he fell through. Thanks for coming, babe. You know, I think my parents have a shovel. He turned around, mouth open, and gawked at Marinette. Seriously? Why didn't you tell me? I don't know. Maybe if you told me where you were going instead of sneaking out when I was in the bath, I could have answered your question. I'm glad this place is so close to the bakery. Otherwise, I wouldn't have gotten here so quickly after the distress call about your rump stuck between bars. Oh. His heart was pumping adrenaline, but his soul was shriveling in disappointment. There was no need to break into his old home, was there? He held eye contact with Marinette and shrugged, taking off his burglar mask. So, I guess we'll go back? He shrugged. She laughed, uncrossing her arms to rest them on her hips. We're already here, so may as well wreak havoc. If he'd worn his Cat Noir suit, the ears would have perked up at her reply, so instead he wiggled his tush like a kitten anticipating a new toy. He'd always wanted to break in somewhere without the protection of his mask. Thanks, babe. I just want to point out, she said, walking over to the gate and opening the keypad, that if your father is dead, then legally you own this property. The bars began to rumble as the gate opened, leading a path directly to him. His shoulders slumped and he pursed his lips, feeling like this was a scene in a movie to make the audience laugh before things went under. I love you, Mare, but you just killed my thunder. She laughed and held out her hand for him to take, warming his insides as they made their way to the shed. There weren't any lights on inside the house, making Adrien wonder how often anyone stopped by if his father didn't exist anymore. The thought made him sad. As different as their love languages were, Adrien would have liked to get to know his father better, bad parenting and all. Here, Marinette said, gesturing to a door. Will you do the honors? He bit his smile as he jiggled the handle, knowing what she meant. He needed to kick it down. Bracing himself, he timed 3 steps with a kick, knowing what would happen. It wasn't his first time taking down a door, although this time he wasn't wearing a mask. 1, 2, 3. Kick! The door flew to the end of the room, hitting a row of gardening equipment and clattering to the floor. The force of it threw off his balance, and he slammed to the floor, hitting the back of his head on concrete as his tush padded the fall. Oof, that hurt. Hey, Mare? His voice sounded far away as he saw stars dancing above his eyes. Yeah? She sounded just as surprised as he was. Have I always had, super awesome ninja skills and Super Saiyan strength without my mask? Or is this a recent development? I heard that you moved on from fencing to kickboxing in America, but I didn't think it'd be like this. It must be that you don't know how to regulate your body strength anymore. Adrien straightened himself out, still shaken by the damage he caused. I knew my body felt different, but I didn't realize that it came from me having more muscle. Does this mean you could bench press me? Marinette asked, offering him a hand. I guess. We both know you could take me on any day, but I've yet to return the favor of being used as a weight. You're an efficient weight when I'm doing push-ups, kitty. Bony butt and all. Yeah, save it. Adrien stood up, taking the opportunity to hold her hand. The shovel they needed was to the left, so he didn't need to enter the shed to grab it, only reach over. You know, if he is dead, then you own this property. Don't take this moment away from me. She laughed at his comment and squeezed his hand 3 times, letting him know it was in the name of good fun. They left promptly, not wanting to explain what happened to anyone who might be alerted by the noise. Adrien still had his keys to the Bugatti, so while he was happy to drive it to the graveyard, he got an earful from Marinette about the vices of luxury. It also gave them peace of mind, because no one would want to park around a car that expensive. He realized how ridiculous he looked when he took the shovel out, but dismissed it with a smirk. Ridiculous was his style. He took his wife's hand in his and made his way through the gravesite, searching for the plot his father purchased. It was the dead of night, but the scene was calming to him, not spooky. Marinette was with him. That's all he needed to feel secure. That's it, Marinette said, pointing to a path. That's where the funeral was. You remember it? Yeah. Hawkmoth used it as a chance to pin us against each other because both Miraculouses would be in the same place. You erased my memory and ran away to lick your wounds. Sounds about right, he said. The news hurt him, but didn't come as a shock. Marinette stopped in her tracks before sighing. Oh, dear. What's wrong? We don't need a shovel. Adrien's heart skipped at the news. His father wasn't dead? There wasn't a grave? Really? Look. His line of sight traced her finger until he saw what she was pointing at. A mausoleum. Of course his father had a mausoleum. The man was as pompous as a peacock and as attracted to glamour as a moth to a flame. Yeah. All that trouble for nothing, I suppose, he said, handing her the shovel. Do you have a key for it? He turned to her, a grin blasted on his face. Why do that when I have newly acquired ninja skills? He asked. His tail end wiggled as he let go of her hand to back into a fighter's pose. Your inability to control your non-superhuman strength isn't why I married you, she said, giving him a peck on the cheek before walking to the door. With a jiggle of the handle, it opened. He deflated, somewhat awestruck at her. Where'd you learn to do that? It was already unlocked. You're the smartest girl I ever kissed. He loved how her nose crinkled when she bit back a laugh and seized the opportunity to peck her cheek. Sure, they were in a graveyard to open a vault, but romance was in the air. The answer he looked for was sitting in the middle of the room, carved with enough detail that it was an art piece in and of itself. Adrien felt Marinette's hand on his shoulder, supporting him and pushing him forward at the same time. He could do this. He had to do this. "Ready to push?" she asked. "Let me do it by myself." Marinette hung back by the entranceway as he stepped forward, laced with something. His chest was tight, and his feet felt like lead. He could taste his saliva, and pins ran up his legs with every step. A feeling of dread choked him. Which was worse? A dead father or a missing one? If his father wasn't there, then he probably did something during his akumatization. Something a lucky charm wouldn't fix. The slab top of the vault chilled his fingers, touching him into reality. It wasn't the time to get lost in thought, but enough to make him hesitate a moment further. All he needed to do was push. Push and get his answer. He closed his eyes and started to move the stone cover. The grating sound calmed him somehow. Now all Adrien had to do was open his eyes. The truth, empty casket or not, was in front of him. It wouldn't kill him. He just needed to open his eyes. "Adrien?" He heard Marinette's voice and shook it off. He needed to do this himself. "Adrien!" There was fear in her voice. He could hear it this time. She must be able to see inside the vault, and his father wasn't in there. Something must have happened to him then.
"Take off your miraculous and turn around slowly."
Adrien froze. That wasn't her voice. He knew its owner all too well. Lifting his hand slowly, Adrien began to turn around. Hawkmoth was behind Marinette, bracing her in a chokehold with the cane that doubled as a weapon.
"The ring, Adrien."
Hawkmoth called him by name, and although he could tell Marinette was already calculating how to get out of this, he was scared. That, and he knew she would be disappointed in giving in without a fight. The miraculous was more significant than the two of them, regardless of what happened. Should he transform? Would she? He made eye contact with her, hoping for some kind of clue. If they could just... Adrien couldn't believe his eyes when he heard the sound of a shovel making contact. Hawkmoth dropped to the floor, knocked out from being hit over the head with gardening equipment. Who? Ugh, now I've got dirt under my nails. I can't believe I had to do this, Chloe exclaimed, standing with the shovel like she was holding a trident. Marinette's legs gave out, and she dropped to the floor, shaking. She began. "How long do you think I've known you, Adrien?" Chloe said, throwing the shovel on the ground with a clatter. "Did you not think I know exactly what you were planning to do when you texted me for a shovel, but your location on Find My Friends was at a cemetery? Ridiculous! Utterly ridiculous!" He stood paralyzed, his head calculating the worst-case scenarios that would have unfolded had she not been there. Adrien had let his guard down for what? To wallow in self-pity and daddy issues? To feel like a rebel dressed in black? He needed to grow up. "Adrien." Marinette's voice grounded him. She was okay. That's what mattered. His father's vault could wait for now. "Take his miraculous," he said, still tight with a sudden burst of adrenaline. Chloe kicked the masked man on his back and kneeled. "What does it look like?" she asked. "Here." Marinette grabbed at his collar and hesitated a moment, looking up at Adrien before continuing. "Moment of truth." She ripped something off and, with a flash of light, Adrien's heart stopped beating. There, lying unconscious on the ground, was his father. Gabriel Agreste is Hawkmoth. That was it. That was his breaking point. Adrien collapsed to the ground, numb to the world around him. Something inside him shriveled as he realized what the last few years were. Even as an adult, his father ruled over him. Marrying Marinette was his freedom, and he took that away. His father betrayed him in the worst possible way. The vault was useless now that the truth was in front of him. This was it. There wasn't a catch. Hawkmoth was his father, and everything lined up. Well, now what? Chloe whispered, aware of how delicate this situation was. Adrien? He realized they were leaving the choice up to him. Take him in, or take him away. It wasn't fair. He shouldn't have to make this decision. I'll take him to the car. His father was lighter than he'd imagined, and looking down on him now, he seemed far more fragile than the man in his memories. Age didn't look good on him. He set him down gently in the back seat of the Bugatti, taking a moment to notice the wrinkles around his eyes. How different was the man in front of him now than the one in his memories? Marinette slid into the driver's seat, and Adrien knew it was for the best. He was in no condition to drive. He opted for the back seat as well, in case in case Gabriel woke up. While the silence could have eaten him, he found it peaceful. His mind was at rest because for the first time in years, he wasn't worried about getting manipulated or saving someone. There were no illusions, no tricks, nothing. It was over. There wasn't a catch. His eyes shot open at the thought. This was too easy. They'd spent years going after Hawkmoth, and took him down with a shovel? No way. Hawkmoth never worked alone, whether it was by akumatizing a new partner or working with a hidden Miraculous holder. Something wasn't adding up. He wouldn't have confronted them alone. There has to be a catch, he murmured. It just didn't add up. What was that? Marinette asked. There's a catch. She pulled over to the side of the road and put the car in park. What are you talking about? There had to be. Where's his Miraculous? What? His Miraculous! Where is it? Adrien, I think... His Miraculous, Marinette! His voice changed in a way he couldn't take back, and regret hit him instantly. He messed up. As upset as he was, he still shouldn't have raised his voice at her like that. It's not here. He almost couldn't hear her, but her tussle with her purse proved it wasn't in his head. Tell me I didn't hear that right. She turned her purse over onto the seat, scrambling to find it. It's not here, she whispered. What? It's not here! Adrien could hear the fear in her voice. He looked at his father and pressed his fingers to his neck, trying to find a pulse. There. It was real. The person in front of him was real. His dad was okay. He was somehow mixed up with Hawkmoth, or was Hawkmoth himself, but at least he was real. The worry gave him clarity. At the end of it all, he was still his father, his dad. Adrien loved him, flaws and all. He wasn't perfect, and if he happened to be a criminal mastermind, then they had a lot of talking to do. Until then, they'd get him to a safe spot. Ladybug and Cat Noir protected the people of Paris. They always did, regardless of who they were. Adrien was going to protect his dad, even if it was protecting him from himself. Thank you so much for listening. Sorry for the lower quality of this recording. I'm in the middle of redoing the recording room. Anywho, like it if you like, and leave a comment and support. Comments really, truly do. They're the best kind of interaction that you can give a creator, both in moral support and in actual, YouTube statistics. Thank you guys so much. I love you, and I'll catch you in the next part.